subject, and there are 35 seconds left for Sunday starting now.
Sometimes I leave with my motor car and drive down to the coast. And there I have a little boat with a blue sail and a white hull. And I get into it and float across the waves with the oars going 1, 2, 3, because I have one at the front, two at the back. And then I...
Clement Freud is challenged, Joe.
Repetition of both 1 and 2.
Yes, that's right. You have one at the front, you said 1, 2, 3.
Absolutely right.
Yes, absolutely right. Clement has a point, and there are 17 seconds left for Sunday, starting now.
The 5th Lord Brecknock once said to his second wife that
Jacqueline Mackenzie, why have you challenged?
Absolutely no 5th Lord Brecknock.
He means the pub.
Obviously, as I was not prepared to judge on whether the 3rd Earl of Shrewsbury did any soldiering, I am not going to judge on the 5th Earl Brecknock. Clement Freud gains another point, therefore, and he has 13 seconds for Sunday starting now.
Saturday night is the loneliest night of the week.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Saturday night is not what we discussed. It's Sunday, and I don't see how, by any stretch of the imagination, you could possibly introduce Saturday night into this discussion. I am moved. I am impassioned. I think.
You're absolutely passionate. And probably the reason you introduced it is because it's the day before Sunday. Did it not occur to you? And so I'm afraid you didn't give him a chance. So though I'd love to hear you go further on Sunday, I must be fair according to the rules of the game. Yes. And say Clement has another point, and there are 10 seconds left for Sunday. Clement starting now.
Because that is the night my sweetheart and I used to...
Derek Nimmo, John, front. Derek Nimmo has gained a point for a legitimate challenge. He takes over the subject with 7 seconds left for Sunday, starting now.
One Sunday, on the Isle of Shun, I turned to the Dowager Viscountess Selby and said...
Kenneth Williams, why do you
We
challenge?
all know there's no such person.
It's a pub, Kenneth.
Well, Jacqueline, how do you turn to a pub and speak to her?
Easily.
Yes, and speak to her, Kenneth?
And if
All
his
right.
dowager lady exists, she'll be furious if you say she's an husband.
All right, in deference to her ladyship, we'll say that Derek Nimmo has a point for an incorrect challenge. 2 seconds left, starting now.
Let's go down to the jet.
I'm sorry to have to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that there's no more time to play this particular game of Just a Minute. Jacqueline Mackenzie was just in 4th place behind Kenneth Williams, who trained a little behind Derek Nimmo, who was in 2nd place. But our leader and winner this week was Clement Freud. For the sake of the chairman, the panel in future will stop bringing in names of the aristocracy. I find it very difficult to judge whether they're dead or alive. Well, we do hope you've enjoyed this particular edition of Just a Minute, and from all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parson. The programme was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hamm. present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud and Joan Turner in just a minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you very much, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And it's my pleasure today to welcome for the first time to the programme Joan Turner, who's going to try and pit her wits against these three clever exponents of the game. And once again, I'm going to ask them all if they can speak for just a minute on some unlikely subject without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject. And according to how well they do it and whether they're challenged or not, they will gain points or their opponents will. And let us begin the show this week with Derek Nimmo. Derek, can you talk about enjoying life? I'm sure you can very well, so we'll start off the show on that subject, 60 seconds now.
Well, I think travel really helps one to enjoy life tremendously. I awfully like going to the Aegean, perhaps to the Cyclades group of islands, going out on the lovely LA steamer across the wide dark sea, landing at the quayside and being greeted by wonderful maidens, handing me a glass of ouzo perhaps, or a little octopus, perhaps a cup of coffee. And there are...
Clement Freud, you've challenged.
Two perhapses.
Yes, it was quite true. He did say perhaps twice, so I agree with the challenge. You get a point. You take over the subject. There are 37 seconds left. Enjoying life starting now.
It is utterly unnecessary to travel in order to enjoy life. You may have the most...
Derek Nimmo, you have challenged. Why?
Well, deviation, it is necessary to me, so it cannot be utterly unnecessary.
In Clement Freud's neck of the woods, which is the phrase everybody seems to use these days, it can be. After all, he's not deviating from the subject. According to his ideas and opinion, it could be. So I'm afraid I have to disagree with your challenge, Derek. Clement gains a point, keeps the subject. 31 seconds left. Enjoying life starting now.
For instance, you can have a ball wallowing among the bickies and cakes at the bottom of your tin. Other people like to stuff themselves absolutely to their limits with chicken and turkey, with blackberries, red currants, all sorts of delicious things which are seasonally...
Hesitation, perhaps.
Hesitation, certainly. So you get the subject back, you gain a point. There are 2 seconds left. Enjoying life starting now.
The little cock robin.
For those of you who may be new to the game, and I believe we even have 1 or 2 in our audience tonight, I must explain that when the whistle goes, that tells us that 60 seconds is up, and whoever is speaking at that moment gains an extra point. And this occasion it was Derek Nimmo, so he now has a lead of 1 at the end of that round of Clement Freud and Kenneth Williams, and Joan have yet to score. Kenneth, your turn to begin. Henry VIII. We know your historical bias knowledge, so can you talk to us about Henry VIII for the 60 seconds starting now?
Well, of course, it is extraordinary this beautiful-looking young man should have become such a gross monstrosity and should have resulted having been given the title.
Doing him a work of challenge.
Deviation, I think it's totally unfair to talk about Clement Freud.
I think the audience are very unfair, do you, Clement? Did you notice they all clapped then? Well, all I can say, Derek, is the audience enjoyed it as much as we did, and Clement Freud, bless his heart. So there we are. We won't score any points for that horrible challenge. I will say that Kenneth still has the subject, and there are 46 seconds left. Nothing scored. Henry VIII. Kenneth starting now.
In fairness, it must be said that he did believe in marrying the wife of his dead brother. He was committing a sin and did write a great treatise on the subject, for which he was given the title Defender of the Faith. Later on, this same gross creature...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
Repetition of grace.
Oh, but I said in the other place, not in this place. That's all right. It's another place.
It doesn't matter which place
Remember
you
the
said
Stewart
it in.
Malta? That was another place.
It was another time in this present 60 seconds, but you have repeated gross since you started speaking.
Well, he was gross.
You can't get out of it however grossly you try.
Well, I want to go on a bit more. I don't want to just finish now. I just got worked up.
I could see.
Kenneth, you're quite right.
Yes,
I found it a most interesting story. I don't care
you, darling. Thank you. I've got this.
Have you two finished? There we are. That's right. You've had a little throb, Kenneth, so can we get back? Derek Nimmo, I agree with your challenge. Repetition of gross, so you take the subject over, and there are 24 seconds left. Henry VIII, starting now.
To get his divorce, of course, he had to go around various universities in Europe to find one that was able to come to the same conclusion as he had. But this had a very beneficial result, because this was the founding of the Church of England, the episcopate of which we are all so proud, and it is through that same Henry that we now have presiding and wandering around.
Derek Nimmo was speaking then when the whistle went, so he gains yet another point. And did you notice that once Derek starts going on any ecclesiastical subject, then all the tone comes into his voice, and nobody dares to challenge him, because however much they feel that there might have been some discrepancies. Anyway, that means that Derek has increased his lead at the end of that round to everybody else. And Clement Freud, your turn to begin. My first car. Would you tell us all about that? 60 seconds starting now.
My first car is silver, smart, and has 5 wheels and a chauffeur, as opposed to my second car, which is grotty and dark blue and doesn't have anyone to drive it at all. I think mentioning my first car, it would be a tremendous mistake if I ignored speaking of my third car, which is puce. Some people say heliotrope or purple, and doesn't go at all, and in fact stays in our garage, where the assistant driver sometimes looks after it and wipes it. But to revert to my first car, it has stereo, audio, and phonio, which is the name of the person in charge of the wheel. And many a time have I leaned forward into the speaking tube and said, "Listen, you up there, go a little faster, or alternatively, turn the wheel."
Ah, Derek Nimmo challenge.
Well, hesitation.
Yes,
That's awfully mean of you.
yes, 2 seconds to go. You almost made it.
You almost made it.
So Derek, you gain a point, and there are 2 seconds left for my first car, starting now.
It was 1936 Buick, and I always had he was chewing gum.
Well, on that occasion, Derek Nimmo was speaking. When the whistle went, he gains yet another point, increases his lead at the end of that round. And Joan Turner, will you begin the next? In fact, you have to begin the next round. It is your turn. Top notes. What a marvellous subject that EMS has chosen.
Yes, well, it's...
Can you talk to us about your top notes, Joan?
Top notes. Oh.
Starting now.
Start now. Oh, oh, stop it there. All together?
Clement Floyd is challenged.
No, he hasn't. He can't.
He has challenged. He has
No, I
challenged.
haven't finished speaking yet.
You haven't started speaking.
We've got 9 seconds. So,
Repetition of the top C.
No, I only did it once. Oh no, it was twice. It was once with Derek and
I'm glad
once
you
on
were
my
honest
own.
about it, because my pitch is not such that I could have said it was all topsy. Well done, Clement. There are 51 seconds for your top notes, starting now. Derek Nimmo, you challenged. Hesitation, yes, you gain a point. Take over the subject. 49 seconds, your top notes, starting now.
It's £100 note, and I keep it in a little covered note. And I like it very much.
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
Deviation.
Why?
Because it's top notes we're discussing, not back notes.
But his top
No,
note
no,
could be a
no,
back
come
note.
along now.
I'm not going to come along
Joan
anyway.
has already illustrated it for us, so we know exactly what's up to discuss. We
There are-
cannot go from musical notes to back notes.
We can if we like, as the
Now,
subject.
dear, come on, dear, now then. You're behaving like a piece of elastic. You'll stretch yourself so far, you'll split yourself right in the middle there.
You're getting a nice lot of laughs, Kenneth, but the subject is top notes. You can interpret that any way you wish. So Derek Nimmo gains another point. I disagree with your challenge. There are 45 seconds left. Derek, top notes starting now.
Sherpa Tenzing, while sitting on the top of Everest, once wrote a little note to Mr. Edmund Hillary, and he said, "How nice to see you up here," and because they couldn't speak at that time.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
2 Edmund Hillary, no time.
Oh, yes.
We don't have any points for snobbishness. He can say without the title if he wishes. But it was a repetition, Clement, so I agree with you. You get a point. You take over the subject. 32 seconds. Top notes starting now.
I think you are dishy, have lovely hair and eyes, and will you come home with me after school? Signed,
You
Veronica.
hesitated.
15 seconds left, starting now.
Well, one of my top notes is a note I had from my...
Kenneth Williams' wife,
I'm afraid of hesitation.
It's such a funny story.
Honestly, Kenneth, you wanted to let
you
Joan
are.
have a go, and as soon as she
It's
has a
my
go, you
first
challenge
go.
her. Well, all right, I've got to be fair on this. All right, Kenneth. It
right.
is.
If you can tell a funny
Yes, all right.
Go on. I bet you
I'm going to give it to Joan because you felt last time it was unfair to Clement, so this time we're going to be unfair to you and say Joan has a point for that. And there are 8 seconds left for Joan to continue with top notes, starting now.
Well, as I said before, one of
Clement Freud is challenged. Darling, with the greatest respect, I've got to get it back to him this time.
What? When as I said before, she hadn't actually said it.
No, I had to say
Well,
it.
before. Then she said, well, as I've said.
Yes,
You did too well.
I must be fair. I gave it against him last time. Clement, you had the subject back. 6 seconds left for top notes, starting now.
It was written on parchment with a fine hand, and panographically, many people said, nowhere has there been a
On that occasion, Clement Freud was speaking when the whistle went. He's gained a little on our leader, Derek Nimmo, and Joan Turner and Kenneth Williams are both trailing somewhat.
What do you mean trailing? Where am I? How many have I got? I don't know why I come here, I really don't. I wouldn't be insulted in a better place.
You asked for it. I was being very polite, saying he's training someone. You said, well, how many have I got? I've got
But I'd have thought he should have been some points by now.
What for? Cheek? You won before now, Kenneth. Right, Derek Nimmo, your turn to begin. The subject is exercise. Can you talk to us for 60 seconds about exercise, starting now?
Yes, I do like to exercise with both my dog and myself, and we can do it concurrently as we wander along any street in Hyde or anywhere else that you happen to name. If you would like to suggest somewhere, I'd be very happy to go along with you. But when I think of dumbbells and Indian clubs, I, like Kenneth Williams, the wrong. I pick them up in my hands, wave them above my head, and shout, ahoy! I'm fit, and when I feel like that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to say that a very different person emerges from this effete frame. I leap open.
Clement Freud, right or challenge?
deviation.
One.
Different people emerging from this frame.
It's a very clever idea, but he wasn't deviating from the subject. He used an expression about different people emerging. I think it was a colloquial expression. I don't think it's deviating from the subject of exercise. He was trying to demonstrate something using words, which
It's
is
more like exorcise than exercise.
I think that I give Derek the benefit of the doubt, and there are 22 seconds left, Derek, to continue with exercise, starting now.
One of the most wonderful things about living in this semi-world is that we are able to exercise our free will. This is something, ladies and gentlemen, which we are hugely
Troy, why
proud
don't
of
you
in
Repetitive,
this
ladies and
fair.
gentlemen.
Had it last time.
Yes, he's had ladies and gentlemen before, I'm afraid. It's jolly difficult, you know, sometimes to keep going. You have a phrase that comes to mind because you can't think of something else to say about exercise. But Clement, I agree with the challenge on this occasion. You take over the subject. 12 seconds left. Exercise starting now.
Switching on the radio in my first car, I often hear a lady saying, stretch your arms, bend your knees, twiddle your toes, raise your chin, move your ears.
On that occasion, Clement Foy was speaking when the whistle went. He gained another point, and he's now only 2 points behind the leader, Derek Nimmo. Kenneth, your turn to begin. The subject is bubble and squeak. Can you talk to us about bubble and squeak for 60 seconds, starting now?
This is a term that's been applied to myself and Stanley Baxter when, on our forays through the city of London, we have been affectionately nicknamed Bubble and Squeak. He, of course, does the bubbling, being a buoyant and emollient personality, and I do the squeaking because I'm trying to show my deep reciprocation when they come to my door of my house. I'm making a very nice proposition. I love it when I put it down, and they say to me, oh, H. Christmas, whether you are
difficult because I agree with Derek in a way. It's got nothing to do with it. But on the other hand, I mean, you might well say it was a very good interpretation of Kenneth Williams' idea of bubble and squeak. So, as I think he was endeavouring to illustrate then his point about bubble and squeak, I'm going to side with Kenneth on this occasion and say, Kenneth, you have a point at last. Sorry for that. And there are 19 seconds left to continue with your particular bubble and squeak, starting now.
Of course, there is a version that people prepare in frying pans in a kitchen. And Mr. Clement Freud, the notable correspondent on culinary matters, has gone into great detail on this very subject. And he has gone on record...
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Denied.
Deny it as often as you like, but I don't think that technically he was deviating from the subject because...
well, he may be right. Perhaps he ain't gone on about it.
I'm sure he hasn't gone on about it, but in your imagination, because he writes...
Well, I thought, yes, because he writes about it, you might have discussed it.
So I will give Clement Freud a point, because the audience appreciated his remark. Let's give Kenneth Williams a point too, because he's keeping the subject.
Yes, that's true.
And there are 3 seconds left for bubble and squeak, starting now.
A most tasty dish, especially after the Sunday joint.
Laughter at the present moment, ladies and gentlemen, has been caused by the fact that Kenneth Williams has come up to see at the end of that round how many points he's got. He could have known himself. He's got 3, and he's in 3rd place, and he's trailing more than somewhat behind Clement Freud and Derek Nimmo. Clement Freud, your turn to begin. The subject is age. Something a lot of people feel sensitive about and conscious of, but can you talk about it for 60 seconds, starting now?
Age is something that many people feel conscious of and sensible about, but I don't particularly have views in this way. The Latins call this Anno Domini, which was a cunning way...
Clearing them a wife challenge. Well, it depends on when you went to school, actually.
That's true, Nick.
Well,
That is
and
true.
because
That's right what he says about it depends when you went to school. It changes all the time. I mean, I remember in my day it was etc. Now it's supposed to be etc. isn't it?
Well, thank you very much, Kenneth. Would you like to come over here and be chairman as well as sit down?
If I may say, it also depends upon your age.
I was about to say that obviously there was a change in pronunciation of the Latin I at some points. I don't know what year, but I don't have to just... I won't say when because it effectively is... Right, therefore the challenge, I think the fairest thing to do, as there's 2 pronunciations for it, there'll be no points scored. The subject stays with Clement Freud, who has 47 seconds left for age, Clement, starting now.
53, 49, 26, 88, 91, or...
Derek Nimmo, wife of challenge.
88, 2 8s.
I will give you a point, Derek, only because the audience enjoyed your challenge. I've done it to each one of you now, so that's fair.
That's very fair.
But
I don't think anyone will contradict with that.
oh, but the subject stays with the point yet.
Yes, you've got one, you've got one. Shut your mouth, shut your brain mouth.
Get a point as well, because it's not a justifiable challenge, because you said 88, and it's what you say that counts, not what is...
Not what is written on the card.
Not what is visual in your mind, 2 8s.
Write it down.
Age is the subject on the card, not 88. So Derek gets a point and Clement keeps the subject. 42 seconds left, age, starting now.
But 9 could just as well be called an age, because it is, after all, the number of months, the number of days that you have existed.
Derek, number you challenge.
Repetition of number.
There was a repetition of number, yes. So Derek, you gain another point and the subject, and there are 33 seconds left for age, starting now.
To tell the age of an oak tree, you have to go into the forest with a large chopper. Then you bang away at that particular tree until it falls.
Clement Freud's challenge, one.
Repetition of 3.
Yes, there was a repetition of tree.
Absolutely
Oak tree.
right. Thanks, well, jolly well done.
Clement gets another point. It's neck and neck between these two now, really. And there are 25 seconds left for age, starting now.
If you are desirous of ascertaining the age of a horse, it is essential to regard